What's the deal with the Oscar nominees for Best Achievement in Directing? Achievement in Directing? How fancy! What's good about their directing? What's bad? Are they worthy? Setting aside all my snarkiness, the 5 nominees this year are excellent, which is the least we deserve after 3 out of 5 directions they nominated last year were shit.
Pure, unadulterated crap. How's yours?
It's crap. Pure, unadulterated crap.
To better highlight the styles of Belfast, Drive My Car, Licorice Pizza, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story, I'm going to discuss their directions in this order, from the most understated to the most bombastic. From the quietest, most invisible of directors, to the one grabbing you by the throat and shouting at your face. In a good way. Here we go. Ryusuke Hamaguchi for Drive My Car. Here's the hardest thing about analyzing directing. If you read too much into it, everything sounds clever. So I'll stick to an objective look at what the director did and how it helps in telling his story. Drive My Car has a discreet and classical style your typical reviewer would call confident, sensitive, metaphysical, and whatnot. Screw that! Here's what Hamaguchi did. The film has a slow pace and many wide shots that fit the characters so well into the environment there is rarely a need to cut. Like in this moment Mizaki shows her old house. Cozy. Or when she shows the garbage trucks. Don't hire Mizaki as a tour guide. A particularly good shot happens 2 hours into the film. Takatsuki meets Mizaki on screen, then follows a picture-taking fan up the stairs to the left. Yuzuki arrives alone before Mizaki and Takatsuki return. Only then does the camera move to show them entering the car. We don't know it yet, but as Takatsuki was briefly off screen, he was beating someone to death. That's a hugely important plot point tucked away by a classically inspired, nonchalant composition with simple but effective blocking. Speaking of blocking, look at this. You might wonder why an understated direction like this gets praised, while an equally understated direction from a film like, say, Coda gets ignored. Here's an example why. Half the characters in Coda speak through sign language, yet the director never does anything creative with that. Drive My Car has a single deaf character, and Hamaguchi makes her use other people's bodies to express herself. It visually gives a sense of closeness between these two. Speaking of closeness, the development of Yuzuki's relationship with Mizaki is shown visually. At first, she is mostly shown from behind, her eyes only on the rear view mirror. Remind me to talk more about mirrors later. And many shots show the car from outside. As the two characters get closer, she is seen more from the side, and some 150 minutes into the film, finally facing the camera. Their closeness is also shown through their side-by-side hands holding cigarettes. The film eschews over dramatic or expressionistic shots, but it still has a good use of color and a handful of beautiful images, such as this strongly diagonal composition that lasts just enough for the sunlight to go away. And the most stylized moment is this match cut from the tape to the car, which implies Yuzuki's dead wife is what keeps him moving. What? Oh, right, mirrors. Thanks for reminding me, you amazing active listener. Here's my favorite shot in the film. When Yuzuki catches Auto f***ing Takatsuki. No, not because of that. There's no nudity, just thrusting. I can even show it on YouTube. Wait, can I? No idea. Okay, I'll censor it. Yuzuki's problem is he doesn't face his problems. He pretends Otto doesn't cheat on him. The mirror is a perfect way to show this because through it, he looks at her cheating without facing it directly. Every time we see the mirror, we imagine how many times he found her someone else. That's the power of great directing. It makes an image signify something it does not show. Speaking of great directing, Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. Let's find out why this DGA winner is this year's frontrunner. Ever stop to think about how few films deliver a sense of touch? Not sight or hearing, which any movie can do, but touch. Like your creepy uncle your parents don't let you enter the pool with, the power of the dog is very touch-centered. Jane Campion uses many close-ups which emphasize the particular sound, texture and feel of objects, like Peter's comb, the paper flowers and the earth-shaking rope. Because the film has such a slow, calculated rhythm, the audience can take in these details better than in a faster-paced film. Notice how important are gloves for the movie's plot. Jane Campion makes sure to show in detail that Peter always wears gloves and Phil never wears them, and that's a matter of life and death. Can I show a calf getting castrated on YouTube? I know, I'll make a visual pun.
How come you don't wear gloves?
Come back as you're not needed.
What polyglot genius could ever hope to crack your impenetrable code?
The script never makes it clear that Pete plans to kill Phil, so everything depends on how Campion shows such details, which leads to an extraordinary shot. Right after Pete gives Phil the poisoned rawhide, we get this shot of Pete looking at the rope as Phil works on it. Pete knows the hide has infected Phil's wound. He knows Phil will soon be dead. And not a word about it was ever spoken out loud. In the same scene, Phil talks about Bronco Henry as he works on the rope. When he mentions lying with him, what does Jane Campion show us? Symbolism. After Pete and Phil share a cigarette, we get extreme close-ups of horse hides. Did they bone? We don't know, all we see is a bunch of strongly fetishistic shots of horses. Here's another thing Campion does a lot. Frames within frames. Damn, that's a good shot. Alongside the touch-heavy close-ups, they sometimes give the film the point of view of a voyeur, which adds the ideal impression that there is something mysterious going on behind the surface. The first time we see Phil, he's on the outside and the indoors camera follows him thanks to 3 windows. The last time we see Phil, alive at least, it's from the exact same spot, but this time he doesn't walk all the way to the house, stopping midway because of his poor health. Speaking of camera movements stopping, when Rose plays the piano, the camera moves, stopping only when she gets interrupted. After Phil not only interrupts her but humiliates her by playing perfectly, the camera moves again, representing how he completely stole her mojo.
I've lost my mojo!
Rose's problems are also evident in the dinner scene. Campion places and frames her in the middle, indicating all the attention is on her. Not only that, but she is the only character who is not dressed in dark hues. All this helps to show her feeling of discomfort. Jane Campion did exactly what a great director is supposed to do, which is what Bronco Henry did to Phil. Nope! Not that. This.
Taught me to use my eyes in ways that other people can't.
Now let's leave the slow pace and speed up towards our showier directors. Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza. Though I don't think the film needed to be shot in scope, standard 185 would have done just fine, Licorice Pizza does have a strong visual style. Shot on film with an intentional 70s-inspired grainy look, it boasts several tracking shots which do fit with the hyperactive stories of Gary and Alana. Is that John C. Reilly? Anderson also boosts nostalgia and wonder by sometimes using intense lighting and contemporary songs. Just a thought? Ever noticed how contemporary means both from the present time and from that time in the past? Which is what I mean right now? Those are 2 contradictory definitions. That's so confusing. Anyway, there's a couple moments Anderson shows love in a discreet and natural style. When Gary and Alana are finally together, the searchlight we've seen a few times before makes the whole world disappear for them. And right in the beginning, when Gary sees Alana for the first time and gets smitten, the sprinklers turn on, which was a creative detail. The camera follows her walking to a direction, but when Gary begins chatting her up, the camera changes course to follow the new direction, perfectly showing how her life changed paths when she met him. Or I might be reading too much into it to have something to say here. Who knows? Here's my favorite shot in the film. During the gas crisis, Gary and Alana prepare for one final waterbed delivery. We see how their office is empty. They move to the truck, seen in a frame within the frame, and the door closes. It is never stated that the company ended, but it couldn't be clearer. Still, Paul Thomas Anderson's greatest achievement in Licorice Pizza is the timing and the performances.
No gas in the goddamn car, Steve-O!
The film's accelerated, carefree pacing is precisely what the script requires, and Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim, who never acted before, come off so natural they don't even seem to be acting. Oh, and I love this use of a mirror when Gary and Alana meet cute. Mirrors are the best. Kenneth Branagh for Belfast. This is a story from a child's point of view, and Ken shows it by taking a small street, a small house, a small world, and making them appear huge. The camera never found an unusual spot it didn't love, constantly seeing things with a child's curiosity and sometimes with a child's lack of permission. There are many frames within frames, but unlike the power of the dog, they are not voyeuristic. They are there to create a tight community.
Everybody knows you.
There's always room for new characters to move into the frame, if they are not already inside the frame, like Judi Dench here. Ken uses every conceivable spot in the screen and milks more out of the 1:85 ratio than any ordinary director can get from scope. If it's not physically possible, he will add a mirror to show us even more. I f***ing love mirrors. Look at the last shot that shows the grandfather alive. From the outside, so the window's reflection can show two nurses going over a case, making it clear there's no hope for him. No, I'm not reading too much into it. A strong theme in Belfast is the duality between a child's world and the world of adults, and this is shown visually many times. There are numerous shots split in the middle, either horizontally or in depth. And does this film use depth?
We're not deaf back here.
This shot here has 4 levels. The women in the foreground, Will in the middle, Buddy further back, and the father in the background on the outside. Now let's talk about the film's use of black and white. These days, if you use it randomly, you're just a pretentious douche forcing some artsy prestige you don't have. But Belfast looks perfect in black and white, unlike, say, those 3 turds on top of each other in a trench coat trying to pass off as a movie called Roma. Plus, Belfast uses color in movies and plays to show what a magical escape from reality they can be. Is that Tom Wilkinson? Nope, it's John Sessions, not Tom Wilkinson. My only problem with the directing is the use of shaky handheld camera work during the riot scenes. Come on, that is never ever good. When the riots begin though, we get this terrifically tense 360 degrees shot to show Buddy's world changing forever. Speaking of over-the-top camera movements, Steven Spielberg for West Side Story. Out of the 5 films nominated for the Oscar of Best Achievement in Directing, this one is the most directed. Take everything I mentioned about the directing of the other 4 films and ramp it up to 11 and you got yourself Spielberg's take of West Side Story. Hey look, mirrors! Remember when I said Drive My Car has a good use of color? Yeah, not compared to West Side Story. And when I said Licorice Pizza has some intense lighting? It's true if you don't watch West Side Story right after it. Here's Licorice Pizza showing love at first sight. Here's West Side Story. His camera moves up and down and to every side. There is over-the-top use of light and shadows and uncountable over-dramatic, expressionistic shots frequently shown by reframing instead of cutting. Is over-the-top bad? When your film is a bombastic Broadway musical whose story is a literal tragedy featuring love at first sight, gang wars, murder and revenge, a sober and restrained direction should be out the window, don't you think? Because Spielberg is one of the greats, he avoids those shitty MTV-inspired bad angle collages to properly show us the choreography in full, like the old masters used to do. What is choreography if not super stylized blocking? Of course, the choreographers deserve huge credit, counting the original choreographer Jerome Robbins, who still has his hand on several portions. But the way Spielberg arranges everything visually with the camera, which also becomes a dancer, is amazing. The original West Side Story almost looks static in comparison. That's not to say there's nothing discreet in Spielberg's direction. Notice how the lighting turns darker after Riff's and Bernardo's deaths. And when Riff is inviting Tony to the ball, Tony keeps trying to move away and place things between the two of them, until we see them separated by the shelves. Even these intimate moments have dramatic lighting and angles. There's barely a shot in this film doesn't look like it took 2 hours to prepare.
Man, this place looks expensive. I feel like I'm wasting a fortune just standing here. Better make the most of it.
Thank you for watching. What do you think about these 5 nominees? Which one has your favorite directing? Which one has your least favorite? Go on and comment. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share it. Once the Oscars are done, stay tuned for my take on all the winners. I will see you there, and this is Movie Wise.